Hi, and welcome to Week 10 in Research and Organizations. First of all, let's just have a word about about last week. And I just posted the introductions, and you may have been surprised that I provided quite a bit of feedback. Oftentimes I provide more feedback than students actually were anticipating, and that may be the case with you this time. So I just feel it's a little bit important to discuss each and every piece as much as I can in order to make sure that there's a clear understanding with your particular study and the way that you're crafting your proposal. And so that, yeah, I've spent quite a bit of time in detail, and I hope it's helpful. Please ask questions as you have them about my feedback on your particular proposal. Remember that it's possible to improve your points as you go along. They can be improved in proposal, and the problem, purpose, and research question in particular can be improved with your proposal and as you go along. So do remember that that's the way that this course works. There are no bonus points to earn, but but revisiting those pieces and perfecting them. I feel like with research, it's an iterative process, that it's not intuitive to us, so it's real important that we build on week by week what we are learning, and as we make progress, as we hone our ability to have a researcher's mind and think in a researcher way, then that's recognized. And so just remember that that is the way that we're conducting this particular course. Okay, second, let's have a word about the literature review that you're preparing. Many of you remembered your literature maps, and that was wonderful. I was so pleased to see that you are going back to them and revisiting the streams, 3 or more streams, that you had identified in your literature map. So bravo, that's great. We know more now than we knew when we first were developing that lit map, when we had just topics and hadn't really crafted the purpose statement. We now want to use the purpose statement, and so that the various elements or components that are named in our purpose statement will feature as streams in the literature review. Also note that as you read more literature, that you're likely to find that there are specific terms that are defined and utilized in a specific way in the literature, and you may have been using them in one way and found that they're actually used in a different way, and then you can take advantage of that learning such that you can change their terms and perhaps even find more literature and a wider body of literature utilizing the new terms that you've learned in the way that they're currently being discussed in the literature. So let's move from there to this week. This week we are moving right into, even though we're doing our literature review and the lit reviews are due this coming Sunday, a week from today. It's Sunday as I'm speaking to you now, and so the literature reviews are due next Sunday at midnight. And while you're focusing on the literature review as you're crafting it this week, then we also are learning about survey and descriptive survey method. Some of you have decided to use the descriptive survey method. So in that method, there are a couple things that I want you to keep in mind. And let's just actually go. First of all, I want to point out that there is a nice video here that should be helpful. There are quantitative resources and specifically survey resources. Let's just look at the survey resources here. So these are pieces that will help you in actually designing your, if you are doing survey, actually designing the methods section, section 3. So Don Dillman is who I recommend. He's pretty much a guru with survey research, and there are certainly others, but he's very accessible, and I've provided a couple, I think, articles here that you can utilize, and feel free to quote them if you are using Don Dillman's method of survey. He will talk about using web survey versus using perhaps handing out or administering the survey questionnaire itself live, and or mailing as was common years ago, and it's still used to a degree, but web surveys are more prevalent today. And then having a gatekeeper to actually receive the questionnaires and strip them of any identifiers so that you can claim anonymity, and you want to be able to do that as a survey researcher. And then you will then utilize a number of different analyses tools, but pretty much the measures of central tendency is what you're going to be after, and that's all we really need for our master's level research. And we're not getting to that. Remember, we're only doing the proposal, but we're writing the plan, we're crafting the plan of what we intend to do. So here's an overview of 3 chapters in a quantitative proposal and what they should, and again this is quantitative proposal, and what they should each have in them, and then there's descriptive statistics survey for you. So that's a look at what we have in our survey resources. Okay, now let's look at our framework for this week. We've got a number of different objectives, 6 of them actually. It's real important that you have an understanding of quantitative survey components and validity. So that's what we're about for this week. Notice that validity is a real important piece. That is our quality control. For quantitative, we use validity. For qualitative, we use trustworthiness. And we'll talk about trustworthiness next week when we talk about case study. So in quantitative research, we're talking about, and in particular here, how to gather information in an anonymous way as a third-party researcher with a very objective approach. So one of the things that we might be doing is investigating safety training to conduct a survey of attitudes about safety training. Some of you have safety training in your work, and it might be that you are interested in the attitudes of people who are taking that safety training. So different methods, we all want that data collection to typically be anonymous, and that's typically the way that it works when you are distributing a survey questionnaire. It will go to people without identifying who those people are. You will get their emails, but you do want to either have some kind of a protection, a gatekeeper of some kind that can give you a way of maintaining that anonymous sense, that degrees of freedom from where you are and where the sample is. If your sample is large enough, you will be able to claim generalizability, which is the quality goal of quantitative research. You want to be able to say that the sample that you surveyed and the participants who are the people who are the respondents of your sample would represent the population at large. Sometimes in order to do that, we need to get a stratified sample. We need to be able to artificially be able to make sure that the various groupings within our population are represented in our sample and in the participants who actually participate and return our survey questionnaire. Now, there are a couple of in survey, there are a couple of actual shortcomings, and I pointed those out to you, those of you who are doing survey. The two shortcomings that are primary are, one, that it's a self-report. That's going to be a shortcoming for qualitative as well, but with quantitative, when your respondents are answering their questions, it's not that they're being dishonest, but it's that we all have a censor, and we say or report usually in a slightly more favorable light than perhaps might be the case if there were observers observing exactly how we performed. So we want to bear that in mind, that self-report is a shortcoming, a weakness of survey. So another weakness is that of the people who actually respond, that's only a subset of the people, the sample, to whom we sent our questionnaire. There are also the people who did not respond, and those people might have answered in a very different way than those people who did respond. So that too ends up being a shortcoming. All right, bear that in mind and take a look at the resources. You're going to write a quantitative purpose statement for your topic and a quantitative research questions, and then we're going to discuss in the forum how the three stream literature reviews are similar, how they're different, because we're going to be still talking about literature review, and what recommendations we have. All right, that's where we are, and we're about to enter week 10. Look for you online. Bye-bye.